Hi, my name is Mike Bryan. This is Democrats of Greater Tucson. Today, we have joining us Dr. Michael Butts, who's running for Arizona State Superintendent of Public Instruction. Hi, Dr. Butts. How are you doing today?
Doing great. How's everybody doing?
Excellent. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself to everyone and talk about your campaign for office and your history that suits you to be Arizona's Superintendent of Public Instruction.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate this opportunity to talk to the Democrats of Greater Tucson. And I say good afternoon to everyone. My name is Michael Butts, and I am a proud father, a former police officer, a teacher, an assistant principal at Millennium High School in Goodyear, which is one of the top 30 high schools that students love to attend. And I'm also an elected school board member for Roosevelt School District, where I live. And above all of that, besides being a father, I am deeply proud that I am a Democrat who's running for Arizona Superintendent of Public Instruction. 20 years ago, I left the police force when I realized I would never bend the arc of our children's futures toward success and moral courage if I didn't reach them earlier. And I knew that the surest way to do that would be by providing them access to excellent schools and qualified teachers. That's because knowledge is the ladder to opportunity. And that is what led me to teaching in public schools and earning my doctorate in education. As an educator, I've worked in schools that serve communities of all backgrounds, with many families living at or below the poverty line. What unites all of these schools, though, are the students. No matter where they live or what background they come from, children arrive the first day of school curious, hopeful, and filled with potential. As they grow and learn, they begin to dream about what they can do in the world and about the person that they can one day become. Their future is unwritten, and all things are possible. To help students on this journey, there's a dedicated team of professionals in our public schools, and some of you may be online with us right now. From teachers and administrators to social workers, food service personnel, bus drivers, and the men and women who ensure operations and campus safety. They're there to support learning, and they need our support too. Right now, they're not getting it. Like you, I've seen the legislature starve education, siphon money into private schools, denigrate science, ban books, underpay teachers, and rewrite American history. Now, Donald Trump's jumping in with even more funding cuts, abolishing the Department of Education, and inflicting on us some of the most cruelest, most divisive politics America has ever seen. And is Superintendent Tom Horn fighting to protect our children? No. He actually said that President Trump should dismantle the Department of Education. And he's partnered Arizona schools with an alt-right curriculum that teaches that slavery was, and I quote, a compromise to achieve something great. It also teaches that fossil fuels aren't causing global warming, and that murder victim George Floyd was just, again, I quote, a Black man who resisted arrest. We need to get the damaged, intolerant people who teach false history and deny science out of our public schools. At this moment in Arizona, children and schools don't just need an administrator. They need a champion, a leader who values public education and free thinking, and who will rally people to fight for them at the Capitol. That's what I'll do in this election as your next superintendent. I am the only candidate for superintendent that's running clean. And I'm the only candidate that's beholden to no one. And as a people power candidate, I'll never stop fighting for public schools. I hope you'll join my campaign to protect the dreams and opportunities of a new generation. And I hope you'll become a part of this effort to return the oversight of public schools to leaders who want to see them succeed. You can assist our campaign in our fight for public schools by donating $5 as part of the clean election candidate process, or maximizing your donation throughout the lifetime of our campaign for this bid for Superintendent of Public Instruction by donating the maximum donation of $220. Or you can sign our petition online at www.electmdb.com. Thank you.
Thank you for that presentation, Michael. Let's ask some questions of Mr. Butts and or Dr. Butts, sorry. And Steve, if you would voice questions in the chat for us, I'd appreciate it. And Bridget, why don't you unmute yourself and ask your question?
Hello, Dr. Butts. Thank you for joining us today. I am wondering if you can, this is a two-part question, describe your position on reproductive justice for youth, and then tell us how you have demonstrated your position.
Reproductive justice for youth.
Yeah, tell us what you think that is, what your position is on that, and how you have demonstrated that position in your prior positions.
So when I was teaching in my teaching career, I taught 12th graders a class called Global Perspectives. And Bridget, that class was a lot of fun because I taught 12th graders how to argue both sides of global issues, such as climate change, technology, migration. And so it was a lot of fun because they learned how to look at rhetoric and look at arguments on both sides of either issue. And so they had to learn through that course how to look at multiple perspectives and also articulate their perspective as well. So this question here definitely falls in line with something that have become accustomed to as a teacher, but also as a school board member, looking at curriculum and looking at policies and looking at what teachers are doing inside the classroom. So from a human rights standpoint, when we talk about reproductive justice for youth, I think that we have a tremendous responsibility in the even pre-K through K-12 system to make sure that all students feel safe, all students feel welcome, and all students feel free to express their ideas and also debate other ideas and learn, in a very diplomatic way how to prepare themselves for their next venture in life outside of high school. And so I think that we do a really good job here in the Agua Fria Union High School District. I think we do a really good job within the Roosevelt School District, where I'm a board member. And this topic is kind of sensitive in nature as well. And so when we talk about students learning about their ideas and how to feel about certain topics such as race, class, or gender, I think that really there are some courses that we take that there's courses that students take where they get to explore those various issues. And so for an administrator standpoint, as an administrator, we also push into the classrooms and we evaluate teachers. And so really my position is to make sure that students understand the issues that we're facing in our schools and in our society. My position is to make sure that teachers are leading students along that pathway to explore their own ideas and not to really push in on a particular idea or a particular agenda, and leaving that discretion up for the learner to learn and take on their own position. And so when we talk about reproductive rights in terms of social justice, we do also rally around parents idea of where they want their child to be exposed to as far as curriculum. So we invite input from parents as well when we're talking about these types of concerns. Sometimes we send letters home for parents to know, hey, this is what we're going to be talking about in our particular lesson, and if you object to anything, we want to make sure that you have that ability to do so. And so really my stance and my position is to make sure that we give students the opportunity to explore different ideas, to explore alternate perspectives, and in a very safe environment where they have a very qualified teacher to help lead in certain discussions. And so as an administrator, I love doing that. And as a board member, I also enjoy doing that as well on that level. But in the superintendent space, I think that it's our job once we're elected to make sure that schools have what they need to be successful, whether in the rural community, whether in the urban community. And so hopefully that answers your question about where I am in my position and how I've demonstrated my position.
I have a follow-up question. Michael, may I ask it?
Of course.
Okay, Dr. Butts, that was a very thorough answer, but I'm going to drill down.
Okay.
Do you support comprehensive science-based reproductive care, sexuality education in schools in Arizona. Comprehensive, science-based sexuality education.
So you talk about sex education and that being
I'm talking about sexuality education, comprehensive, science-based.
comprehensive. Can I invite you to explain what you mean by comprehensive?
Well, let me give you an example. If you talk about birth control, the expectation would be that the curriculum would include all methods of birth control as well as pregnancy termination in case some young woman found herself pregnant.
So as
Well
far
as the responsibilities for the young man who impregnated her.
Sure. Sure. So what I can tell you is that schools, have a duty to inform and educate. Decisions like that, really come from the family, and we really lean in on families to guide those types of issues with their particular child. And so our place in education is very neutral, unbiased perspective. And, as public schools, we typically don't dive into those kinds of individual concerns when it comes to birth control.
Okay, so the curriculum, the sexuality education curriculum in your school district does not include informing students of birth control options. Did I hear you say that correctly?
No, what I said is that, as far as me, you're asking my individual position, right?
What would you do? I want two things. What
Sure.
does if you're a board member for a school district,
Correct.
does your sexuality education curriculum include all options available for birth control? And does it mention the word abortion as an option if someone finds themselves pregnant? That's kind of a yes or no question here.
I don't believe that we touch on that. I believe that, as far as our policies in place, I have not seen any policy on that topic. I'd love to look into that further, but I don't believe that that's a position that we take as a school district.
So
And
your school district does not talk about birth control options available for young people.
I would have to look into that because Roosevelt is
Okay.
K through 8. So I would have to look into that.
Okay, and your your district is what? K through what?
K through 8.
K through 8. Okay. If you are elected the superintendent of public instruction, what would your position be related to, and I'm going to keep the question narrow. When I say comprehensive sexuality education, I'm going to drill down and say all methods of birth control and abortion as an option should someone find themselves pregnant. Would you support a curriculum that included those options?
I would support students knowing what options are available to them legally here in Arizona.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Maria Parsons asked, how has your background in law enforcement influenced your opinion on the presence of law enforcement in our schools?
Sure. My particular background in law enforcement gives me a unique perspective when it comes to safety in schools and making sure all kids feel safe. And so when I look at my background in law enforcement, my background in law enforcement, of course, is specific to the jurisdiction I operated in, which was in Cincinnati, Ohio. And so when you look at transferring some of those skills and perspectives here in Arizona, specifically in Goodyear, where I'm an assistant principal at, of course, the dynamics are different when it comes to the crime statistics and whatnot. And when you look at where I'm a Roosevelt school board member, those statistics are different as well. And here's the fact: local school board members, they are the ones that make the decisions for school districts, right? And so I do support making sure that all kids feel safe. And I do support students or schools districts having the resources they need to implement this safety procedures and policies in place that they need to keep their kids safe based on their jurisdictional issues and local concerns. So some school districts do in fact have campus safety officers. I'll speak from my example here in Agua Fria Union High School District. We have campus safety monitors as personnel that are on staff, and then we also have a campus SRO from the Goodyear Police Department, and you know, they do a great job of building relationships with these kids as well. And so they're approachable, they're trained, and students feel safe, you know, talking with our campus safety resource officer. And so I have heard, you know, some stories out there where that's not always the case, and there's a lot of work to be done in those situations. But for the most part, I think that if a school district does choose to have a resource officer, a police officer on campus, they do have special training to interact with students, because students obviously is a different population than being on the general community. And you know, a lot of things that they deal with, the general population may not, you know, have to think about. But that's what I know, that's what I experience. And so I'll speak a little bit about my experience on the Roosevelt School District. So in that district, we don't typically have every campus you know, connected to a campus resource officer, but we do have you know, a partnership where, you know, if we do need a support, we have that support. But for the most part, you know, when it comes to K-8, we don't typically see resource officers in that environment here. But I can share with you kind of both perspectives. I think that if a school district does choose to have resource officers, then they should be trained, they should be approachable, and they should know how to work with students specifically.
I have a follow-up on that, if you wouldn't mind.
Sure.
Tom Horn currently is making a lot of noises about his CSO program. They've spent a lot of money with apparently poor oversight to get armed officers in schools. And he wants 180 million more from the Arizona legislature. Is that something that you support, or do you have criticisms of the way Tom Horn has handled the program?
I certainly do have criticisms. Absolutely. I have criticisms because, you know, students are still developing emotionally, still developing mentally, and they need access to, you know, personnel besides teachers in the classroom. They need access to social workers, they need access to counselors. And in fact, students interact with counselors in an ongoing basis throughout the week. And so really, when you look at their caseloads and how many kids these counselors support, we need more counselors, not more SROs. I think we need more counselors. And so the caseloads are high, and you know, there are grants available for school districts to have counselors and social workers, but I think we're going in the wrong direction. I think we need more support personnel versus armed staff. Now, that also is based on your local jurisdictional area too. So I don't want to speak for all school districts in Arizona.
Yeah. Lillian, I see that you're back at your keyboard and unmuted. Why don't you ask your question?
Yeah, I couldn't get unmuted before. The question I have is, I follow my local school board here extensively, and I know being on school boards can be frustrating. You accomplish some things you want and other things just never happen. So my question to you is, what has your board accomplished that you're pleased with? And what else do you think they need to get busy and take care of?
Speaking specifically for Roosevelt?
Yes, for Roosevelt. What's your own, because I think your background is great. I think being on a school board is a valuable thing to have.
Thank you. Thank you. I would love to talk to you about, you know, what I learned about being on the school board. What I've learned about being on Roosevelt School Board is collaboration and working with other school board members, my fellow school board members. We're all coming from different backgrounds and different political experience and perspectives. And so being able to lean in on those relationships and have dialogue, collaborative dialogue to move the needle forward about what's best for our students. And so I think that we are mostly a new board. We've got 3 new board members. I'm one of the 3 new board members, and we have 2 tenured board members. And so really we're coming on, we had just, prior to me coming on, we had just closed down several schools. And so now we're restructuring and figuring out where best to put our personnel and support. And so we're kind of almost getting through that. This is the first year since the school closure, and so we're seeing, you know, where our challenges are, where our opportunities are, and with that, you know, I think that we have a lot of work to do in terms of, you know, making sure that families feel supported and making sure that students feel supported in their new school environment if they were subject to a school closure. And so even if they weren't subject to a school closure, they got new students on their campus. And so really, I think that this school year now is just, you know, a time to really unify families and unify students and see what we need to do to help transition for the next school year. And I think that'll to continue to get better and better.
You have any
Thank
follow-up?
you.
Any follow-up there? Lily?
No,
Great.
he answered the question. They're in a process where, because when TUSD closed schools, we lost 25% of the students because we didn't do a good job on the follow-up. And so I think you're on the right thing for your district.
Thank you.
Maria, you have your hand up. Why don't you unmute and ask any follow-up that you might have? I just asked your question recently. Do you have a follow-up on that?
Hi. No, this is actually a completely separate question. So I wanted to ask, the Trump administration and the Republican Party recently have been making a very concerted push against transgender and queer rights throughout the country, with a really notable focus on our presence in schools, or even like the acknowledgement of our existence in schools. What steps would you take to ensure the protection? I guess this is kind of two questions. What steps would you take to ensure the protection of transgender and queer students and teachers? And what steps would you take to ensure the protection of teachers who acknowledge the existence of queer and trans people in a way that certain parents and Republican leadership may take issue with?
Great question, Maria. Thanks.
Sure, absolutely. Thank you, Maria. So here's where I would like to start, Maria. You know, of course, my first position is that all students need to feel safe. All students need to feel that this is the right environment for them to be academically successful, right? And so we start there. And if any student experiences any time where they're uncomfortable or they feel like they are you know, being harassed for whether it's an ideology, whether it's you know, how they identify, then my job as an administrator is to make sure that I lean in on those concerns when they're brought forward, and that we, you know, we investigate and look into them and really see what's happening and put a stop to any harassment, any bullying, any of those things. And so what I've learned as an administrator is really, you know, students are in our custody from the time they walk out of their home till they get to the bus stop, and even on the way to school on the bus, and even you know, when school is dismissed and they're on their way home to the time they walk back in that door. And so we make sure that we investigate any issues from the time kids leave their doorstep to the time they return back to that doorstep. And so that's what I do as an administrator here locally. And so on a greater scale, as far as being superintendent for Arizona Public Schools, I want to make sure that schools have, you know, what they need financially to look into and deal with any bullying issues, whether it's cyberbullying, whether it's in-person bullying, and any training that might be necessary. Because, you know, what we do know is that, you know, technology is advancing, AI is advancing, and there are you know, great solutions to solving problems, but they also can be used by people who intend to cause harm. And so really schools need support and need financial resources to make sure that they're able to address any cyberbullying or any bullying, whether it's targeted towards members of the LGBT community, or whether it's targeted to, you know, kids that you know, have racial differences. So that's really kind of where I am on this issue with your question. But I do have specific examples. I probably shouldn't give those examples because you know where I work and you know where I'm a school board member at. And so to protect identities, I can definitely tell you that we have made sure that all students feel safe.
Maria, do you have any follow-up on that?
Yeah, thank you. I do want to drill down a little bit more on the second part of the question.
Sure.
what steps would you take for teachers who may be targeted for acknowledging the existence of queer and trans people? So for example, if you've got a science teacher who acknowledges that gender is both socially and biologically a spectrum, and a teacher gets upset, sorry, not teacher, a parent gets upset about that, how would you handle a situation like that?
Sure. You know, I would make sure that that teacher feels supported, number one, right? Make sure that teacher feels supported as an administrator in my current role. And then also make sure that, you know, teachers have the ability to report any issues of you know, aggression from parents, because here's at the end of the day, teachers have to make sure that all kids feel safe. And parents may not have that perspective. They may just be thinking about their particular kid. And so, you know, we've got to make sure teachers feel supported, and the mission and effort of making sure that every student within their classroom feels safe. So my answer to you is to make sure that teachers feel supported in their endeavor to complete that mission of when you talk about safe classrooms and safe students, and then also from the superintendent level, making sure that, you know, teachers also feel supported on that level as well.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
You're welcome.
Excellent. So Lillian, I'm going to skip over for you now. I have a couple of questions in the chat, and Steve has his question, a hand up for a first question. Let's go to Steve and have him ask his question. Oh,
Hi, Dr.
you're-
Butts. My question is, what will you do about parents who refuse to get their children vaccinated?
Currently, right now, you know, we have families that do opt out of vaccinations, right? And so really my job is to work with the legislation as a superintendent of public schools, work with the legislation, make sure that schools are following the current and legal policies when it comes to vaccinations. But really, I believe that vaccinations help. And so I support vaccinations. I support students. You know, I support parents who want to opt out. That's fine, but you know, we have forms that they need to fill out and complete, and then also too that, you know, we keep an accurate temperature on where we are in terms of diseases. If there's an uptick in diseases here in Arizona, then we've got to obviously try some new strategies to make sure that, you know, that families are doing what they need to do to protect their kids, and that as a school, when students come to our schools, that those schools are healthy places to learn at, you know. So that would be kind of my perspective on that.
Any follow-up, Steve?
Oh, that's good. Thank you.
All right, thanks. I'm going to ask a question from the chat. Roderick Norrish has a couple of questions in there that I want to get to. Let's see. He says, why are students enrolled in non-public schools not required, to take testing required at public schools? So basically, why are the testing standards treated differently between non-public schools and public schools? And secondly, are non-public schools moving our schools back toward a segregated status?
Okay. All right. I'll attempt the first question. I may need to hear the second question again. Okay. All right. So when it comes to non-public schools, what I understand is that why do non-public schools get to have different guidelines in terms of testing?
Yeah.
Versus public schools. So yeah, that question is you know, is something that connects with you know, our existing federal education policy, such as every student succeeds, and no child left behind, going back to that time as well. There are federal dollars that are connected to schools, and as a result, there are testing that is mandatory by public schools to make sure that the federal dollars that is being utilized, there is basically a return on those dollars through the evidence of student academic growth and student academic achievement. And so that is why non-public schools, you know, often have to can often you know, test differently or create their own test regionally. And so that's the biggest difference is the utilization of those federal dollars connected to certain programs. And state dollars as well.
Are non-public schools moving our schools back toward a segregated status? I mean, statistics would show that that is in fact the case, but what's your view on it?
I don't have any data in front of me, but the data that I have been hearing about, and I think that, you know, I'm not sure if this is intentional or not, but we're having a hard time getting a chance to look at the data and what it shows on the state level here in Arizona. And again, I'll repeat, I think that's intentional. I do have, a theory that there are situations where when we talk about these ESA vouchers and how they're being utilized and who they're being utilized by, what I believe the data will show, if it's ever released to us in full detail, I think we're going to show that people who come from a wealthier background, wealthier economic status, I think we're going to see them using those ESA vouchers a lot more than other families of lower social and economic statuses. And so in terms of it showing that we're looking like we're moving towards segregation, I believe it's going to show more that we're moving towards classism, right? And mixed in with some segregation. So I think that, we need to be able to get in there and look at the data. And that's one of the things that I will be doing if I'm elected as superintendent. And I will let, our legislature needs to know what that looks like. And if they don't, and then also too, we need to be able to work with, our Treasury Department, the treasurer, and release numbers and look at that data as well.
Great. Roderick, let us know if you have any follow-ups on that by raising your hand or putting something in chat. I'm going to go now to Andrea Kennedy, who's going to be asking her first question. Andrea, why don't you unmute and let us know what your question is.
Thank you, Mike. You were saying that if parents didn't want to get their children vaccinated, that was fine with you. Am I correctly assuming that these children are allowed to go to the school? And if so, how do you reconcile that with the threat to other children there, especially with a disease like measles, which is one of the most contagious childhood diseases we have?
Sure. What I said was I am in favor and support of vaccinations, and vaccinations do work. I do know that there are some families that opt out of certain vaccinations, and they are required to fill out certain forms in order to do that. But I am in support of vaccinations. They do keep classrooms healthy.
So if you let these children who aren't vaccinated come into the schoolroom, how do you prevent them from spreading disease to the other children if they're not vaccinated? Or rather, how do you lessen the chance of them spreading disease to other children if they're not vaccinated?
Sure. If a child is sick, then we could utilize our sick policies, and we can, schools have the current policies in place to make sure that if any child is sick, if they have a fever or things like that, then they're sent home. They're not allowed to be in the classroom. They're allowed to be in the classroom with vaccinations that are not that haven't been given to them based on their parents signing forms, but they're not allowed to be in the classroom sick. Those are two different things.
Children are often contagious before they show any signs, though.
That's true.
And I'll stop now.
Yeah, they can, and that's why I support vaccinations.
One more question from the chat. John Ainley, who is also there on camera. If you want to unmute and ask your own question, John, and he says no. So he says, Dr. Butts, what are your thoughts on student privacy with regard to sexuality, gender identity, etc., and teacher responsibility to inform parents without student permission?
Sure, great question. So when it comes to working with students, I've been working with students for 10 years, and students are with us 7-8 hours a day, right? The longer if they play sports or they're in band. And so students develop really strong relationships, really close relationships with our staff. And sometimes they do, feel more comfortable in talking about certain topics, right? And so really, for me, I think it's a matter of following our law, following our policies. And what law I'm talking about is Federal Education Privacy Rights Act. So we have a duty to, report things that, we hear that is concerning their health or safety, things like that. Other times we do encourage students to, hey, have you told your parents about this? Hey, do they know about this? How do they feel about this? So we do push in on those types of situations where it's not legal to report it, but it would be helpful for them to talk to their parents and to create that trust and moving forward. But that's my take on it. Kids are with us a lot of hours of the day, and so you're going to have those times where students feel more comfortable talking to us about certain issues. But as far as student privacy, we often are sometimes the first time to hear things that are concerning a student besides their parents or their brother or sister. And so we want to make sure that we don't infringe on that privacy or disrupt that relationship to where they shut down and don't want to, talk to us anymore. But at the same time, we have an obligation to report anything that's concerning safety.
Okay. John follows up. Please comment on your views regarding the roles of parents in determining school curriculum.
Most school districts that I know, they believe in a collaborative decision process when it comes to curriculum. And so, for example, when there are conversations about curriculum, they invite the public to come in and take a look at the instructional materials and allows parents to see what it is that their students are going to be reading from, learning from, and hearing from. And so most school districts do that. I don't know any school district that does it. And so, my take on curriculum and having parents' perspectives is very, very, very important and valuable to that process of deciding on which curriculum to use.
All right, thanks. John, let me know if you have any follow-ups on
Yeah, just thanks, Michael. I just wanted to follow up briefly on that. And so, should a parent have veto power over their individual students' participation in certain curricula?
I think parents should have, if they feel strongly about a particular curriculum or a particular book, I believe that they, have the authority, the legal authority as far as decision making and education to excuse their child from a particular lesson, or from reading a particular book. I think it's valuable to even have options available in those scenarios. But honestly, I think that it comes down to parents' ability to have an opinion about it, and if it's a strong opinion, then they can withhold their child from that particular assignment, and that happens every day. That happens all the time, and it may not happen, a lot, but it does happen, and parents do have that ability to do so. I don't believe a parent should be able to stop the general class from participating in a particular lesson or curriculum for the sake of their child.
All right, thanks for those questions, John. I'm going to take a little point of privilege here and ask a question of my own. Here in Arizona, over the past 30, 40 years, public education has really been under assault by our legislature, cutting budgets constantly, shortchanging, even constitutionally, from a constitutional standpoint, our public schools from funding that is necessary. And of course, this new ESA program that's arisen in the last couple of years has become a huge boondoggle. What's the role in the SBI, in pushing back against that and advocating for public schools? And how are you going to do that, both through setting procedures and policies in your office and in your public advocacy?
Sure. Thank you, Michael, for that question. So I love advocating and championing for public education. And so, like you said, public education has been under attack. I've seen money siphoned out of public schools and go to private schools. And so really, I have a lot of ideas around this. And so one of the ideas I have, and God bless Chris Mays, Attorney General Chris Mays, she's trying to fight this fight. Our governor, Katie Hobbs, is trying to fight this fight as well. And really what we're struggling with is, the legislature being controlled by the Republicans who are continuing to siphon money out and not hold Tom Horn accountable. Because here's what he's doing. He's absolutely approving ESA vouchers that are $2,000 or less. And families are automatically getting approval for those types of expenses. And one of the things I would do is stop that. Okay. Chris Mays has tried to ask him to stop, and now she's suing him to get him to stop. But if I was in there, what I would do is I would dismantle that right away. No more automatic approvals. And so I would make sure that I'm following the law that the legislature sets forth about ESA vouchers, but I would not be allowing parents to just get automatic approval on expenditures, any expenditure. I would make sure that we have the proper support in place to thoroughly vet these applications and these dollars. And, the fact that we actually had to convict a family that doesn't even live in Arizona from spending Arizona taxpaying dollars on education items that don't benefit us, it's absolutely insane. And so one of the other things I can do is make sure that if a parent, and this is a scenario, these are multiple scenarios, if a parent gets approved for, let's say $10,000 of ESA vouchers, and they have that money sitting in their account, and they turn around and send their kid to a public school, that money should be asked to be returned, demanded to be returned, because now your student that you received that money for is now in our public schools. They are needing support from our public teachers. They're needing support from our public counselors, public school counselors. And so they are, racking up expenses for the public school while you enjoy that $10,000 safety net that's in your bank account that you got approved because you told us you were going to send your kid to a private school.
Yeah. Is it, just a quick question here, is it verified that this has happened in some circumstances? Because I haven't heard of this particular abuse.
Sure. Yeah. So this is happening. I don't have any specific examples in front of me right now, but we have situations where this has actually occurred. We also have situations where, we even have, I think, close to $1 billion, out there. What I do know is out of that 1 billion that we're approaching to reach by the end of the school year, we have 440 million sitting in accounts right now.
Yeah.
That a lot of parents haven't even spent. They're just holding on to it. And so you probably already heard of that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Follow up on that. And one of my biggest concerns around ESA is one of the huge justifications that was used in order to pass it was that some of the special needs of kids with learning disabilities or physical disabilities were not being met by the public schools. I kind of doubt that. I think that argument is rather specious. But nonetheless, one of the ways that ESAs were structured was that kids who have verified disabilities, learning disabilities or physical disabilities, can qualify for more money. And in fact, ESA voucher families utilize that at a much higher rate than the actual general population of public schools. But yet there is no oversight whatsoever of the effectiveness of those educational interventions that are costing taxpayers more money, up to 30 or 40, even $40,000 per pupil, despite it being claimed and by the parents. And there's no follow-up, there's no oversight, there's no ensuring that those interventions are actually improving those kids' educational attainments. Can you talk about that a little bit? And do you share my concern? And what could the SBI possibly do about that?
Sure. As far as making sure that students have, the support they need if they have disabilities, the simple solution is fund public schools. Properly fund public schools. We spend a certain amount of dollars per student, but when you have a student that needs extra support, we spend more money per student in that case. And sometimes it's a $5, $6, $7, $8, $10 difference. And so if we fund public schools properly, we wouldn't need to, have these other programs available for parents to get their hands on and use without any scrutiny or oversight, like you said. Because here's the fact. The fact is Arizona has chosen to privatize education. Now, we can say it's for this subpopulation of students all we want, but I think that's just rhetoric. Honestly, I think it's rhetoric. Public schools have been meeting the needs of all kids for a long time. They just need the money. Give them the money they need, and I guarantee you they will be able to meet the needs of all students.
Yeah, I would note here that in fact in public schools, when kids with special needs receive special educational assistance, those methodologies and services being delivered are in fact rigorously given oversight by educational specialists who actually review those IDEA plans and so forth to make sure that the services being delivered are actually effective. So we got a couple of follow-up questions from Lillian and Patricia asking their second question. Lillian, why don't you go ahead and unmute and ask your second question?
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear it.
Okay. Yes. Bullying is a real serious problem in some school districts. And I wondered what your experience is in and the age group that you have is where some of the worst bullying occurs, that it's bad in high schools, but not as bad as it is in the, more middle school ages. Is there anything your district's doing that you think is particularly good for, as far as dealing with bullying, and what else should school districts do, in your opinion?
Sure, absolutely. I think the number one thing that we get right, and I think that, or we do a really good job at, is making sure that, our staff members have successful and close relationships with students. That is to me the determining factor of knowing what's going on your campus, and being able to immediately respond to any concerns that come forward, or you may see on your own. If our staff members are engaged and leaning in on those relationships with students, we're able to see when something's off. We're able to see when there's something going on. And in those cases where we can't, because of population, there's a lot of students per staff member, then the next best thing we can do, besides having close relationships, is having an anonymous tip line. There's got to be a way for people to report things, and there's got to be a culture of seeing something and saying something. And so that's what we do well as well. We have a anonymous tip line where students can come forward and tell us about things that are happening on campus that we don't know about. And I think the other thing is to really have some resources available to tackle situations that happen online, because a lot of things happen online, and a lot of times staff don't have the training or the technology to really to have some kind of access to online bullying situations as we would like to. And so and a lot of times that's kind of kept separate, and so if we had a way, I think if we had to improve, I think that would be the area of improvement. How do we tackle cyberbullying?
I have one of the problems that some of my friends who are school counselors have is a kid may be beat up or hurt. They know the kid's being bullied, but the kid won't tell them who did it because they know what's going to happen to them if they tell.
Mm-hmm.
Is there
Sure.
anything you know of to deal with that, or
Sure.
that would get around that?
Absolutely. And when it comes to we talk about the culture of a campus, a lot of students, there's this known idea among students that if you say something, if you come forward, then you're going to be viewed as a snitch, or you're going to be viewed as someone who nobody should hang around. And so there will be attempts to isolate you. And so we've got to make sure that we use strategies to reverse that culture, right? And that's why I think that we have a philosophy on our campus of, if you see something, say something. And how do we incentivize that to where students feel safe reporting things? And so on the other side of things, if there is an incident, an investigation needs to be conducted immediately, thoroughly, and also there needs to be fair consequences. If there's fair consequences, regardless if they're a well-known sports athlete, regardless if they're a great band member or a great or they have high academic success, no matter who the student is that's doing the bullying, there's got to be fair consequences. And I think that helps students feel like something's being done if that happens.
Thanks for raising that, Lillian. I have a follow-up on that. Related to this issue, there are some schools that are moving toward having no cellular phones or devices in the classroom of the child, so that this sort of cyberbullying doesn't impact the classroom, and the kids aren't as distracted. So is that something that you're in support of? Is this a good policy approach?
So I think it's a great policy, Michael. I think it's a great policy because let me tell you how frustrated some teachers get when they're trying to instruct and kids are just distracted by their phones. And so, what we've seen since we've implemented this process, or our policy here on our campus, is that we've seen teachers feeling more supported and more in control. We see learning increase, less distractions in the classroom. And when you have, those types of policies in place, It does all of those things plus additional. When something happens on social media, if you've got a policy where phones have to be in backpacks, guess what? They're not on their phones to hear about some disruption that's happening across the campus or at another school down the street. And so really, you're really taking care of a lot of things by having a strong cell phone policy in place and enforced, because that's the other piece. As administrators, we have to enforce it. If we're not leaning in and enforcing and applying consequences when those cell phone policy violations occur, then kids are going to be apt to not follow the policy because we're not enforcing it.
Going to get another question in here from the chat. Roderick Norris wants to know, what do you believe is the key to raising our educational status among the U.S. states from 49th or sometimes 50th to something higher on the ranking scale?
Sure. Yeah, I think one of the things that we could do is we have to, the number one thing we do is properly fund public schools, right? And because a lot of those rankings have to deal with test scores and schools that take those specific tests. So when we talk about public education, K through 12, pre-K through 12, we are really talking about making sure that schools have the money they need, because when they have the money they need, they can have smaller classroom sizes, right? They can have more classroom support for resources to enhance the learning inside the classroom, and they can have more support personnel on campus when you have more money. And so really, when you think about it, it starts with funding. It doesn't cure everything, but it starts with funding. And because my other philosophy is that when we do have the right amount of money, we still have to make the best decisions possible with the money. We have to do the right things with the money. And so we have a lot of administrators and education professionals that know exactly what to do with the money once we get it, and we just got to get it in their hands.
Patricia, why don't you unmute and ask your second question?
You have a statewide race and you're running clean, which limits your resources. Please share your plan to win.
Great question.
Sure. You want me to share my strategy?
Tell us everything, sure.
All right, let's turn off the cameras. No, seriously. So, really what we're building is a people-powered campaign, right? When we talk about a people-powered campaign, we want people to, from all spectrums, industries, to be able to see our campaign and identify with it and want to be a part of it. How do you do that? How do you build a people-powered campaign? It's very scientific. You've got to connect with voters. You've got to connect with people. You've got to connect with educators. You've got to connect with schools. And if you're not doing that, it's going to be very difficult to do. And so, and you've got to connect with parents. So if I didn't say that already, but Patricia, we do have a very specific strategy on how we're going to win, running clean. And so one of the things I'll tell you is this. We lost we lost in this race in our last election, and we were overspent. The Democratic Party was overspent by $750,000 on their financial in the financial reports, $750,000. And when you think about the votes that were out there, we only lost the race by less than 9,000 votes. Right. Yeah. So really, in terms of being able to win clean, it's very doable. It was done the first time, right? 8 years ago, 6, 7, 8 years ago it was done. We gotta make sure that we build a people power campaign, get people excited, get people motivated and focused on protecting and fighting for public schools, and that's happening. And there's a lot of eyes on this race, because we know that Governor Hobbs is having challenges working with Tom Horne, and we know that Chris Mays is having a hard time working with Tom Horne. And so we build a people power campaign, and we get someone in there like me, then they will have allies for support, and our public schools will have allies for support. But initially, building a people power campaign is our number one strategy. I won't tell you how we're going to cook the sausage, but I will tell you we are going to be building a people power campaign, and that's what we're doing.
My question is, you've run for office before, correct? What lessons did you draw from that experience?
Sure. Well, I learned a lot of things. And so one of the things I learned is that, when it talks about running a campaign, as Patricia talked about, we're going to be having limited finances, right? And so what we have to do is we have to be very strategic per dollar, every dollar we're spending. And every dollar we spend has to go towards direct voter to voter contact. And if you're doing anything else other than that, it's going to be very hard to get your messaging out there. But we hear a lot of times in races, you can never have enough money to talk to all the voters you want to talk to, right? And so you've got to be very specific on which and how you target those dollars and how you target those messages. And so that's what we're doing. Coming back to your question, let me hear your question one more time. I want to make sure I'm not getting off track.
Well, you've run for office before several times, and so I was just wondering what lessons you've drawn from those past campaigns.
Yes, and that's one of the lessons I learned. I learned that you have to be very strategic in how you spend every dollar, and making sure that goes to direct voter to voter contact. The second thing I learned is that your messaging has to get out there early enough, right? And so when I look back at my previous experience, my messaging was oftentimes a little too late in the race, and so this is why we're starting now. I would have started earlier this year in January, but I was completing a dissertation at Northern Arizona University, and so I needed to make sure I crossed that finish line and defend my dissertation successfully. So once I did, I actually defended my dissertation on April 18th, and I filed my statement of interest on April 30th, and we got to work immediately because we knew that we wanted to fight for public schools.
Yeah, I noted that you ran for state representative. What was it in 24?
In 24, yes.
Yeah, and you were not on the ballot. What happened?
Yeah, so great question, Michael. So in that particular situation, we were running up against other incumbents, other people that was in the race. Specifically that race, I believe Marcelino Quinones had decided to step down from that particular seat of House of Representatives, and so his seat became open. And so it was really between me and two other people that were vying for that seat. And so they had more experience, they had more resources, they had more relationships. And so when it comes down to the nitty gritty of campaigning, and it's often based on who you're running up against, honestly. And I think that we had an opportunity, and what we learned in that race is that when you're talking about direct voter to voter contact, and you're talking about collecting signatures, you have to dot every I, you have to cross every T, and there are certain strategies that you can do and put in place to make sure that when you are faced with a challenge, you have exactly what you need to make that ballot. And so that's what we learned. We learned to make sure that we go above and beyond. And I won't get into the judge's decision on that particular challenge, but I think that
there was a challenge to your nomination petitions, is what you're saying?
Yeah, yes, and I think that the judge could have made a very different decision. I think we had some challenges in how we argued our case, and so legally there's very few things you can do about that, because it's a rocket case and it goes pretty quickly. So, but there are strategies that we're implementing right now today from what we learned about that particular legal challenge. So,
all right, Lillian, you get the last question of the day.
Yeah, I'm going back to Horn. I was shocked when we lost to Horn because we had a good superintendent who's doing a good job. So what issues do you think it was that led people to vote for Horn instead of?
You kind of broke up there at the end, Lillian, but I gather your question is, what issues do you think led to the election?
Sure. So I think I understand the question pretty well also. So there's some theories about how we could have won that race, and the number one theory that I'd like to address in response to your question is I think that when you look at the numbers and who decided not to vote, this race isn't really that sexy. Honestly, it's not as sexy as the governor's race. It's not as sexy as the Secretary of State's race. And so really the person running for this particular role has to make sure that people are looking at this race. You have to make sure that voters are watching this race, and you have to make sure that voters that are in the know, that are they're the PCs of the legislative districts, they're on the committees. You got to make sure that they're focused on this race. So you have to do a really good job of highlighting why this race is important, why this race matters, and as a result, I think that we had an opportunity there because there are a lot of drop-off numbers that did not vote all the way down, and so a lot of voters did not vote in that particular race that you're talking about. And I believe I think that's the biggest theory that makes the most sense of why we lost.
Some of the things you were getting beat up on were things that are really set by state law, that as superintendent of education, you can't dictate. You're going to have to get the state legislature to go along. So I think we need to be careful about being overly critical of things that are beyond a superintendent's control, beyond lobbying the state legislature, that it may be more a function of who we elect to the state legislature than any mythical power the state superintendent has.
A good Arizona superintendent of public instruction will have a vast knowledge of how public schools operate, how they work, and what they need to be successful. And so they can take that perspective and push in and lean in on the legislatures to make sure that they are pretty much making a call to action on what they need to support public schools. And so, like you said, it is going to come down to what existing laws are in place and what we have, what policies we have in place. But ultimately, the superintendent of public instruction has to follow the law, and they have to make sure that all kids are successful. And so with that, what I bring to the table is being able to make sure that schools have the right systems in place in the background that helps them operate efficiently.
All right. Well, that brings us up to 5 minutes after. So thanks for sticking with us, Dr. Butts. Appreciate your extra time. And I'm going to bring this meeting at DGT to a close and say goodbye to Dr. Butts. If you want to have any closing statement about your campaign, I invite you to do it right now, Dr. Butts.
Sure, absolutely. Since we've been campaigning since April 30th, we've seen rapid growth in our campaign strategies and mission. And so what I want to do is put a call to action out there. I want you to join this fight for public schools. Donate $5. Like I said, I am the only candidate running clean. I am beholden to no one. I'm not beholden to any special interest groups or any privatized, any companies that are trying to privatize education. I am your candidate of choice to make sure that public schools have what they need to be successful. And so to do that, I need your help. I need your $5 commitment. And we also need individuals to step up and donate $220, the max donation that they can make for this race.
So that you're referring to the seed money donation for clean elections is up to $220 per person. I think all that can be accomplished through the equal system through the Secretary of State's office, correct?
Absolutely. And then also sign our petition and tell your friends and family about it. Thank you, everybody. It was nice talking with you all. Have a great day.
Bye-bye, everybody.